Thanks again, everybody, for joining us here. This session is for international students from abroad who are looking to study in Canada and the various options, scholarships, and otherwise that you have available to you to help fund your education. Suzanne Tyson is an expert in financial aid and funding, so she'll be able to help. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. So Suzanne, thanks again for your time and take it away.
Thank you, Logan. Hopefully you can see my screen before you go off mute.
For sure.
Okay, perfect. All right, so this is, we only have half an hour, so if you have questions, start firing them into the chat now, and we'll hopefully be able to get to them at the end of the session. Talking about funding for international students is one of my favorite topics because finding funding is hard, but for international students, it's even harder. If you were in the first session this morning, this is the slide that I showed about all of the different types of funding that's available out there. So you have your merit-based awards, which are marks or community service or some other criteria based on stuff that you've done. There's financial need-based awards that are available for people with demonstrated financial need. And then there's other awards over here, which we can talk about. But the thing that's frustrating is that a lot of international students can't apply for a lot of the big scholarships that are out there, and a lot of the scholarships that are available once you're on campus are open only to Canadian citizens and permanent residents. There is lots of money out there, though, for international students, and I'm going to talk to you about where to look for that money today. And first place that you should go is scholarshipscanada.com and register at Scholarships Canada and put in all of the information about the languages that you speak, where you're from, any cultural or historical questions that they ask you in Scholarships Canada. They're important because those criteria will match you with awards that are appropriate for you. Higher Ed Points, I'll tell you about that in a second. You can use loyalty points. And one of the reasons that I launched the company was to help non-traditional, as in not going right in from high school directly into first year university or college, help them find funds for education because it is hard for everybody. I have a picture here of Shelley Clayton, who's the Director of Financial Aid at the University of New Brunswick, and she is a wizard at finding funding for every type of student. She actually has created a relationship with Sobeys in New Brunswick, where if she gets donations that go towards Sobeys gift cards, Sobeys will actually match those gift cards. And the great thing about going into the financial aid office and saying, I'm out of food, is Shelley might have a $50 Sobeys gift card for you that will cover food, pharmacy, and gas out there. So your financial aid officer as an international student is your best friend. And a lot of schools will say UBC, I was just on the UBC website, they'll give you a dedicated financial aid contact to work with on campus. Employers, if you do find that you have a job in Canada, you might want to take your 20 hours a week that you're allowed to work with your study permit and work for an employer that actually has funding available for their employees for schools. So I know, I don't know the criteria, but my daughter worked at Starbucks and I was impressed that Starbucks had tuition programs for students that worked a certain number of hours. Tim Hortons has scholarships for their employees as well. And I just read a great article about somewhere out east, I forget which province, they were having a hard time finding people at the local Tim Hortons to fill it out. And so the franchise owner went to the local university and started hiring international students. And then all of the other employers in that area started hiring international students because they needed the hours, they were available to work, and it was such a win-win for both. So let me start getting to some of the sources of funding that international students can tap into. So Higher Ed Points is the company that I founded. And the reason I founded it was because there are billions, literally, of dollars in Canada of loyalty points sitting in people's wallets. If you're not in Canada right now, or if you're new to Canada, you probably don't know that Canadians are super avid loyalty point collectors. And every time you go and get a coffee, they ask for your loyalty card. So we actually have relationships with TD Rewards, Aeroplan, American Express, and CIBC. And if you've ever redeemed your loyalty points for a flight or for merchandise, you can now redeem them for the Higher Ed Points education credit. And they come in $250 increments. And once somebody, you don't have to have your own points. You can, if you have a sponsor who's helping you come to Canada, if you have an employer that you're working with in Canada, if you know somebody who runs a small business, or you have relatives who are already here that might actually be using one of these credit card programs or Fly Air Canada, they're likely collecting loyalty points. You register for a free account at Higher Ed Points, and then after you've made that redemption, we will deposit the money directly into your school account for you at the institution. So there's lots of information at higheredpoints.com. The other place to go is the Government of Canada website, because Canada really wants people to choose Canada as a place to study, but not just to study, to stay and live and grow. We need immigration, and we need an educated workforce. And so if you go to the Government of Canada website, this link, you'll find all the information on how Canada is supporting international students to come to Canada. And there's a specific link here for scholarships for international students. So you can check those out at your leisure. This is being recorded, and I will give the presentation to Logan and the School Finder team to post after the fact. Now, the great news is there are lots of scholarships and awards out there for international students. And what, pardon me, one of my big missions in life is to actually find more money for international students. So whenever I can, and I'm talking to scholarship providers, I say, do you really need to have the Canadian citizen and permanent residency requirement in your scholarship? And one example of an amazing scholarship that is open right now. So if you're a woman and you're age 16 to 28, or you have a student in your life who's age 16 to 28, if you're Canadian or you're an international student, doesn't matter. They have two $10,000 awards. One is for STEM, the science, technology, engineering, math. One is for art students. And international students are more than welcome to apply. You just have to prove that your study permit has been granted. So you have to have proof of enrollment at a school and that your study permit has been granted. It's open till the end of June, and the School Finder group actually administers this award, and you can find it over here at Scholarships Canada. So if you're in Scholarships Canada, you'll see the Opterus Rebel with a Cause Award. And the thing I love about this award is that Janet Hawkins, who's the founder of Opterus, is a rebel herself. She doesn't care about marks. You don't have to actually go to school next year. You can apply for the funds and apply it towards starting a business. She wants to find people who think differently, who are going to change the world, aren't necessarily book smart, but have a mission in life. And if you saw Janet give her presentation, it really is about telling your story, your personal story. So I highly recommend you apply for this. And in fact, one of the winners last year is Reem Mahmoud, and she's from Syria, and she was accepted at York, and she won $10,000 towards her education. The other thing, I've said this a couple times, your financial aid officers are your campus heroes. You really do need to reach out to the financial aid office and find out who your contact is or what the process is on your campus for international funds. Because while you may not be able to apply for government student loans or some of the scholarships, they actually can help you find funds for things like living expenses. There are bursaries for students that are in financial need. Shelley Clayton, as I mentioned, got gift cards for people. Centennial College has clothing swaps for business meetings. And I won't click over to this link, but when you get the deck, they actually have a scholarship at Centennial College for students that have graduated. And a student that I know won it this year. It's $1,000, and he's already graduated and has moved from Ontario to Atlantic Canada. So there are scholarships out there for people that are non-traditional and that are international students. On every campus as well, for the most part, when you get onto campus in the fall, you can register for something called a One app. It may not be called that on every campus, but make sure that you register with financial aid, because there might be awards that come up last minute that they let you know about. Great example of this is Ryerson. Anybody who was registered in financial aid with Ryerson, they had a pool of funds that hadn't been allocated, and they asked students what they needed help with. Anybody who was registered got a notification that they get a free Toronto Transit, a TTC pass. So they had a month's worth of free transportation. So that's the benefit of going to your campus financial aid. I'm going to talk about the ALT Scholarship, which is a Higher Ed Points initiative. It's available, just checking the time. It's available to every kind of student. So You have to be enrolled in post-secondary, but you can be international, you can be mature, you can be part-time, you can be full-time. And it's the first educational crowdfunding program that actually lets students collect cash and or loyalty point donations from anybody. And the reason that we started it was I've adjudicated and set up and managed and talked about scholarships for the last decade. And the one challenge is it always seems like the same 10% of students make it into that top tier for the merit-based awards. So the Alt Scholarship lets everybody have the same chance at raising funds. And there's no transcripts. You can tell a little story about what you want to study and what you want to do when you graduate. And then Higher Ed Points helps you. But the reality is, if you have a network here in Canada or at home, and you can send out your Alt Scholarship program, fundraising program, proof is Rai Putriansya raised $2,000 in record time because she put her Alt Scholarship into her social networks, and people started donating in $50 and $100 increments. And she used those funds to help her take a course in web design, WebEx, so that she could get a higher paying part-time job. So instead of working her 20 hours at minimum wage, if she can find a job that's going to pay her $30 an hour, it's going to be better, as we say, sweat to bread. So Rise, the link, you can go over to her Alt Scholarship campaign with this link. And then because she had raised her money so quickly, I reached out to her and said, holy cow, that was so fast. What did you do? She said, I just sent it out to people. And often people don't know that you're in financial need. It's kind of it's a hard thing for students to talk about being in financial need. And so the Alt Scholarship gave her the comfort to send it out, say, hey, I'm doing this thing. If you can participate, that'd be great. But it didn't make her feel uncomfortable and gave people the option. So then we had Rai write us a tip sheet for prospective international students. And you can find that at this link at the Higher Ed Points blog. And she said, do your research on coming to Canada if you're not already in Canada, and the school in particular, and what the rules are with that school. So she found that when she came to Canada, she was at a private institution that wasn't eligible for a lot of funding and didn't get her onto the graduate path that would have led to permanent residency. So she had to do a couple of U-turns with her studies, make a roadmap so know where you want to go through your journey. If you're using an agent in your home country, get directly involved in the process and the admissions process, so you know what you don't know and you can find it out, and you can start finding contacts in Canada to help you out. Part-time work, absolutely critical. It does add up, and as Rai is doing now, she's actually getting higher paid hourly work. And she said network. So the Canadian, what I've been told by international students and friends who are new Canadians is Canada's all about networking. So if you can possibly set up a network and start meeting with people, it will help you tremendously in finding jobs and getting into specific programs. Let me just check time. Okay, so we've got a few more minutes here. The single most important thing I think international students can do is set up a profile on LinkedIn. If you haven't done this already, make it your number one task after you're looking for scholarships, but make it your number one task. And the reason that you can do that is on LinkedIn, it's a level playing field because recruiters are trying to find students and smart employees, and they want to build relationships with you. So if you put, I'm from Sri Lanka, I've come to study engineering in Canada, and I aspire to be a civil engineer in your profile, and then share some of the things that you might have done in your home country, then start connecting with people that you meet along the way in your education. So if you do have a job here, connect with your boss on LinkedIn. I guarantee 95% of them will have a profile on LinkedIn. Campus recruiters are on LinkedIn, and they love being followed and having prospective students connect with them because it makes their jobs easier when it comes time to hire for positions. You can request to connect with speakers at your school when you go and have speakers come on board. The one thing I would totally recommend, though, include a personal note with your LinkedIn request to connect because so many people get so many invitations. It helps if you say, hey, I saw you at this event talking about this. I would love to connect with you. You will also find people in your desired field of study and your career aspiration. You'll find them on LinkedIn. You can follow them. You don't have to connect with them. And if you do follow recruiters and influencers in the field that you want to study in, they often post jobs in their personal listings. It's becoming more and more common for recruiters at a specific company to post a job in their personal thing. Tons of research you can do on industries and companies, and the people that you're following are going to post things that are going on at their company, which gets you in a better position when you're about to apply for a job there. There's a here's who's hiring list that LinkedIn updates. I think it's every week, and they'll give you a listing of jobs that are available. So it's very easy. This list is hundreds of companies long, and the blue will take you right to the roles that they're hiring for. So when you have your profile, that will be in the feed on the right-hand side. Here's an example of a software engineering manager at Amazon who's hiring multiple engineering roles in Toronto. So there's a guy that if you're on LinkedIn and you follow somebody, this is going to pop up potentially in your feed. Mars is an incubator in Toronto, and they listed 8 tech startups that were hiring remotely in Toronto as well. And then I just put in a search for campus recruitment people, and look, there's 146,000 results. So you can narrow this down in your search on LinkedIn. But if you wanted to link in with this campus program management and recruitment person at Restaurant Brands International, that's a great way to be able to do that. Here's some additional resources. English language test, academic English test for study in Canada. Kale is a Canadian company, and they have an online test. I know it's really hard to get your English language test these days in the testing centers. And so Kale is approved at most Canadian institutions and has an online test. Apparently, when Immigration Canada announced that they were going to let a lot of people who'd studied in Canada get permanent residency, there was a rush on for the tests. If you're sending money from a home country, I'm not sure if you've heard of Flywire yet, but you can transfer money from your home country securely, quickly, and at a lower cost with fees and exchange rates into your school account for you. Devant is a company that everybody should connect with. Every single international student should go to Devant and sign up for this Get Hired at Home program that they're having from June 1st to June 8th. It's free for students, and the registration opens May 1. They're going to have recruiters from companies that want to recruit international students talking about the culture, the work environment, the recruiting process, and there'll be tips and tricks about resume preparation, etc. So Devant is, and they focus specifically on international students, and we're starting to work with them, and we're going to help find more sources of funds for international students together. And so here are some other places to look for some awards. Study in Canada, pardon me, is Scholarships Canada's sister portal that focuses specifically on international students. And then these other links are international scholarships for non-Canadians, international scholarship news, and then this is EduCanada's provincial and territorial awards for non-Canadians that are listed. So this presentation, don't worry if you didn't catch everything. We're going to make it available, and you can watch the presentation again at your leisure. I know it was super fast because we only have a half an hour for this one. But Logan, if you're ready to field some questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Sure, and we've only got about 10 minutes, and if we run out of time, don't get to your question, I'd encourage you to visit the Higher Ed Points booth in the exhibitor hall and drop your questions there as well. But in the meantime, we do have quite a few, some specific ones. Significant other is in the process of getting her PR. If she comes to school in Canada, will she have to pay international fees her whole degree, or only the years that she is not a permanent resident?
Very good question, and I will direct you to your financial aid officer at your school of choice. My understanding, although I haven't checked on this in a while, is as soon as you get your PR, you're considered a domestic student. So ideally, if you come without your permanent residency, when you do get it, the next term, when you start paying your fees, you'll be paying them at domestic students, but don't take my word for it. Check with your institution and the financial aid officer at that institution, please.
Okay, great. Yeah, sort of related question. If you're an international student with international qualifications, but you'll be a citizen or a permanent resident by the time you get to Canada, how much easier will it be to get scholarships? And will your options change when you become citizen or PR?
Yes, and the sad truth is that until you are a citizen or you have your PR, you will be excluded from a large number of the scholarships and awards. And you'll also be able to apply with your PR for government student funding as well. So yes, I would, if you can get your citizenship before you come, then there'll be more financial opportunities for you once you're here, and it will be less expensive.
Right, yeah, definitely true. Okay, so this year I'm heading to uni and my family's finances are not so hot because of the pandemic. Any emergency grants for international students with high academics and a lot of leadership involvement who need financial help because of COVID?
Yes, so two things on this point. A lot of schools, George Brown College had, I think, $1 million worth of funding that they gathered. They have Cindy Govea at George Brown College is incredible. She runs the foundation there. And they did a special appeal for COVID funding. And they were helping students with food, with rent, with tuition, specifically because of COVID, because George Brown College has a lot of new Canadians and people who are just coming to upgrade their skills to be able to work in Canada. So again, your financial aid office and your financial aid officers are the touch point for those COVID reliefs. And when I was doing a scan of the financial aid sites that I listed back at the beginning here, a lot of them did have special sections for COVID relief. Oops, I guess that was in my other, sorry. Go to the financial aid office and they will have on their websites, a lot of them will have special COVID relief information.
Thanks. If you have international qualifications, but you're a Canadian citizen, are you considered an international student if you study in Canada?
Say that again?
If you're a citizen, but you have qualifications from outside of Canada, are you considered an international student when you come to study in post-secondary here in Canada?
If you are a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, then you're considered a Canadian citizen permanent resident. And your qualifications can help you with getting employed, but your citizenship, if it's based in Canada, yes, you're considered Canadian citizen for tuition purposes.
Okay, great. Any advice for doing your undergrad abroad and your master's in Canada? Are there particular countries that are safer to get qualifications that will then be recognized here?
That is beyond my capabilities set because it depends on what you're studying. I just saw when I was doing the LinkedIn screen grabs, there was a woman who was trained as a lawyer outside of Canada, and she had a whole post about the fact that when she came to Canada and was certified here, that there was no difference. So I'm not sure if this person is a Canadian student. I assume that it's an international student studying someplace else in undergrad and coming here for grad. I think it totally depends on the field that you're in. We have a huge shortage of skilled labor in Canada. And so if you come, in fact, go to Devant, and that's a great question to ask the people at the devant.ca, so DEVANT, that site. That's an excellent question to ask them because their whole focus is helping international students with that work progress, right? So if you can probably ask them directly that question and they'll be able to answer it. And they will know what employers are looking for in your field of interest, your career interest in your field of study.
Great, thanks. A few more minutes, many more questions. You mentioned, I think it was Optus Awards, one for arts and one for STEM. Do you have any sense of where business administration would fall in? Is that outside the paradigm?
No, it's in that's a good question because is business science, technology, engineering, math, or is it arts? It's technically arts. So I think maybe you know this, Logan, when you go to the Opteris Award and you apply, I think you're put into one of the two streams. So I would select the art stream because art students aren't used to having $10,000 scholarships out there made for them. That's the other thing that's amazing about the scholarship. So you'd fall into the art stream. But what I would recommend, if you didn't sit in on Janet McDonald's session, really, really read the requirements and all of the little nuggets of detail that are in that scholarship program, because they're looking for someone who's a super creative thinker. So I don't want to give anything away, but if you have something really creative to share and you don't want to write an essay, consider doing something different for that one, because that will get the attention of the adjudicators for that award.
Okay, beauty. A few more questions here. Is the IB diploma, completing an IB diploma, typically enough to demonstrate English language requirement?
No, you have to take the test. You have to take one of the approved tests.
Gotcha. Okay, question from a student new to the process of studying in Canada, graduated from a college in Nigeria with distinction. What are the odds of getting admitted and obtaining scholarship for grad studies in Canada? It doesn't really say the field.
Again, I really don't like the answer, it depends. Look at the field of study and then look at the program. So go to studyincanada.com, and in the schools list, you can actually enter your program of interest. And the beautiful thing about the School Finder and Study in Canada websites is it will pull up all of the programs that all the schools you can take that program at in Canada. In fact, Study in Canada is better for international students because it just shows the Canadian institutions. And then it will tell you what the entrance requirements are and what scholarships are available. And then even better, it will take you to with the link, it'll take you to the school. So that's part of Rise 5 Tips, the article she wrote. Do lots of research on the different schools that are out there. And the best place to start doing that is at studyincanada.com.
Cool, thanks. A couple more minutes. If you are a Canadian citizen but have all of your high school outside of Canada, will that affect your chances of getting admitted to a Canadian post-secondary?
So you're a Canadian citizen, but you studied outside of Canada? No, it shouldn't. I do know that if you haven't studied in Canada, you may have to take the English language test, even if you studied in the States. There are, and this is anecdotal, my daughter had a friend who just did 1 year of high school in Canada and was required to take the English language test. But I don't think there'd be any reason if you're competitive not to be accepted, no. In fact, you probably create a really good personal story for you in your application.
Cool. A couple more. Student applied for computer science at a college and were asked to pay several $1,000s. They asked about financial aid and were told there is none offered. Any advice for somebody whose financial aid office says you're out of luck, basically?
Ask again, number one, because there are people that are making those decisions, and ask if they don't have anything available, what they recommend to other students, because you're probably not the first student to ask them about that. Go to Scholarships Canada, apply or register at Scholarships Canada, see what's available there. There are lots of things that you can participate in that don't require you to be a Canadian citizen there. There's like surveys that you can participate in. Use higher ed points. You can actually tap into anybody's loyalty points to fund it. And then I remember I heard Janet McDonald say, check with your home country, because a lot of home countries offer financing for students who are studying internationally, because we're all trying to get everybody some international study experience. So if your home country offers any scholarships and awards, you might find it there. And then go to those links in the presentation on provincial and territorial scholarships for international students. That was in the presentation. I just forget which slide it's on, but it's in there.
Yeah, sorry. We are out of time. So any parting words before we get cut off here, Susan?
Don't give up hope. Get your profile set up on LinkedIn and start connecting with people. I think that's a big help. I'd say that's the one thing you should do.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, thanks so much.